All right, as you know, President Donald Trump is over in China. They've just had a meeting with the Chinese president. He has, as you can see at the bottom of the screen, invited him to the White House. Here is that invitation.
Tonight it is my honor to extend an invitation to you and Madam Peng to visit us at the White House this September 24th, and we look forward to it.
Now, what's fascinating about all of this is, of course, remember, in the lead up to the 2016, it was all about taking on China, in and around the virus. The virus was from China. Now, of course, the trade stuff has all been about taking on China. Well, now there's this sort of cuddle that's going on. We'll all find out together which way this goes, but that is the breaking news. On top of this, by the way, when we're talking about overseas news, keep an eye on what's happening in the UK. There's a chance that, long process, but one of the people who was a key minister for Keir Starmer probably pulls the pin as a way of starting a leadership process. Starmer would automatically go on the ballot. However, it's not MPs that are choosing, it's the members of the party that will choose, and they are wildly left. Remember, they chose Jeremy Corbyn twice. So if you're a betting person, and I'm not a betting person, and I'm sure no market will be formed on this, Angela Rayner or Ed Miliband. Have a look in the next little while. Let's get to all of this now with people who I'm sure have never bet on politics in their life. Darren Barnett joins us right now. Have you ever?
I have, yes. But
so have I.
Yeah, why not?
Yeah.
I know more about it than racing or anything. At least I'm betting on something I know about.
Correct. And Ross Goodell, I won't dare ask you because the consequences for you ever so slightly different. Of course, he's the National Senator from New South Wales and he joins us now from Canberra. All right, so I want to ask you first, Darren, what did you think of the ideas, bugger presentation, the ideas at the heart of the speech that Angus Taylor's put on, and which of them actually get somebody to look up and go, oh, OK?
I think people will look at the immigration stuff. They'll look at, what I think is interesting, the next battleground, he's got one battle with One Nation and he's addressed that via the migration. They're going to index migration to inflation and it'll be a popular thing if they're trying to cut welfare recipients, all the rest of it. That's going to be popular. But I think he can be outflanked by One Nation. Whatever he says, they can go that little bit further. The tax stuff and the Bracket Creek announcement will be well received.
That's really good. That's the smartest part of all of it. But, of course, the question, and I love this straight away, right? He goes, I was watching his interview on the ABC, and straight away, it's not just the how you pay for it. It's automatically, well, OK, that means the government will lose, this much revenue. So quick, times 10, make that the biggest number possible. Reality is that I think it might be around $5 billion. They get in hundreds of billions and they spend, about $300 billion of it on welfare. So...
But what I think is fascinating, you touched on it before with the number of, the divide of the age of 50. The divide of the age of early 30s, it's the volume of voters is already large. They vote Labor on 2PP about 65% and that's assuming that the Liberals are the opposition. That's going to grow. That's the battleground. And Labor has staked their claim on housing and the changes that they're making, that can make it more affordable and that we don't lose that dream of home ownership. Angus Taylor's going to come at it via a migration lens and say that, we're not going to outstrip the number of people coming in and the number of homes. So that battleground of younger voters and how do we maintain that dream of home ownership, that's going to become the centrepiece of really the next couple of years of Australian politics.
But also, you want to pay attention to the way that the ball is spun, right? Now, often there's sort of the way lefties try to get you to see bias in the media is through a thing called media literacy. Let me give you a little bit of media literacy. Pay attention to which media organisations will and won't mention things like grandfathering, right? Because that's part of the problem, right? Now, we've said all the negative gearing stuff, part of the political equation is by saying everyone who's got it won't lose it is a way of being able to save themselves. That was Shorten's position, but he sort of forgot to mention that as it started to melt away. Conversely, this idea about you have to be an Australian citizen to be able to get welfare, well, hang on, what about the existing Chinese and Indian diaspora? That was a question straight away asked as a way of trying to pull the rug out from underneath Angus Taylor. Well, his answer was, it's grandfathered for everyone who's currently here. So that's how you'll know who's putting the spin on what ball. Ross, obviously, there's plenty in all of this, certainly from the faction when it comes to the regions. What did you think of it, and what floated your boat the most?
Thank God. I mean, I'm smoking what he's rolling. We needed to get back in this game after 9 months of nothing. I think he's given us that. And I'm just so thankful. I go to Churchill after the fall of France. This isn't the end. It's not even the beginning of the end. It's maybe the end of the beginning. So we needed it. We're back in with a shot, and I'm just breathing a sigh of relief. Well, this needs to be a better Australia. We've been messing around for too long. We're back on the board. We know where we're heading. Let's back it. Let's get it in. But it's just so good to be back in the game.
I think pumping up the regions is something that he really did strongly. He said a quarter of money will be spent. And I think it was a very regional-friendly budget. Obviously, Farah was a wake-up call. They've got to really address that, and that's what he's done.
No,
but net zero will play well in the regions, but the closer you get to the CBD, the major capitals, the bigger that problem's going to be.
Well, and I've said
the teal seats are gone.
But yeah, I've said this the whole way through. Sorry, Ross, I'll get you in on a second, right? Which is, again, it's not just about what you believe, it's not just about what you want, but it is, again, the reality of who is listening, who is voting, what is settled versus what is something that you can introduce as the arm wrestle to convince people your way. And I always think, and I've said this when it comes to the net zero stuff, that, OK, they've got to the position about, get rid of net zero. But Ross, I've also said that part of that conversation has to be, is climate change real? Yes. Should we do something about it? Yes. But should we have to do everything? No. Because when you turn around and say things like we're going to, get rid of, essentially, the empire that has been built by Chris Bowen, you know what that's going to be turned into by the community independent who's going to be running in regional areas, which is, Ross doesn't even believe in climate change. That knuckle, he's stuck in the 1930s. I think that's part of the message that matters, right? Why do you think there's a certain advantage in him lifting up tonight this idea about going after billions of dollars that Bowen sprayed around?
Well, $18 billion in this budget that we can actually put into other things. It's important because we've got to get out there. We've got to put our stake in the ground. I was really proud to write the NATS report with Matt Canavan of the Page Research Foundation about net zero. And we've been lifting it twice the rate of OECD nations. To get where Bowen and Albo want to go, we've got to do it 3 times the rate. That's not fair. That's a pipe dream. We want to be the pin-up posters for net zero in the entire world. It's just rubbish. So we have to do our fair share. I believe that the climate is changing. Matt believes the climate is changing. But why should we nail ourselves to the cross to try and do it? If you're self-crucifixion, you can never get the last nail in. But Bowen and Albo seem absolutely determined to try and do it on net zero. And this is killing the regions.
How good's Ross tonight?
He's had 2 great lines, hasn't he?
Just, smoke if you got him, roll, smoke what he's rolling, and that one too. I like it a lot. All right, let's go to where, again, the back and forth inside the Parliament today, where I couldn't possibly use the word liar, apart from the fact that Anthony Albanese has used that word multiple times as Prime Minister. Not ancient. We have to go back to 2002 to declare the word to be inappropriate, whatever. But the direct hit on Anthony Albanese that clearly pisses him off is this idea that, well, hang on, pal, you were able to go from Housing Commission boy in Marrickville to the bloke who's eventually going to retire multi-million-dollar cliff top on the Central Coast of New South Wales. And what helped you do it? The very policies that now you are wiping out for any future generation to be able to access. He's always so angry on this point, and I never know why, Darren. He was annoyed when the Greens went at him. He's pissed today when Simon Kennedy went for him. I mean, does he not think this is like Flavor Flav, the chains that are hanging, the big clock that everyone's going to aim at?
I don't think he's the first person in politics who doesn't like people who don't agree with him.
No, yeah.
That's kind of most of, certainly the lower house. Yeah. So, look, he's got his story to tell, and he's come up from his bootstraps and all the rest of it. But it won't be him who decides how good these policies are. It's going to be how people vote in 2 or 3 years' time. I think they're not a first-term government. I'm not sure that people are that surprised by a change, that they did it on stage 3 tax cuts. People eventually agreed with that.
Well, this is
this is not a Gillard moment or even a Rudd, greatest moral challenge of our time moment. That people will judge, but I don't think people will be overly surprised. They're a second-term government.
Yeah, but Ross, do you think that the lie matters? Does the lie move people to go, you know what? There's actually a threshold of BS here. There's only so much we can take. We forgive you for this. We forgive you for $2.75. We forgive you for lower the cost of living. But you know what? If you're going to change the whole way we're able to make any more money on top of what we earn, we'd like to know that before we do or don't vote for you.
100%. I think there's the intersection of two things. It's the lie. I think they calculated they get away with the lie because we've been largely useless for 9 months under the previous regime. There's no policies and not putting up a fight. Today, we've actually got in the fight, and now this lie matters because of those things intersecting. No one is like I stood on Farrag. We got beaten the hell out of down there, but no one was loving Labor. Labor didn't run because they didn't want to finish below us in the Libs. That's why they didn't run. They would have got smacked on that polling booth, and no one's in love with them. And if we can be credible, if we can stand up, that's going to happen. The lie matters because it is now a competitive race, and they will find that out next time they have a by-election they do stand in.
Yeah, absolutely. Also, I'm so sick of this, bootstraps business. He doesn't think of anything lower than the bow tie now, right? Like, let's be honest. And that's the reality. Is okay, great. He's been able to change that, but the idea, and it's been really interesting. Obviously, a certain type of person seeks you out to say what they think about the budget, but I've been trying to talk to people who are surprised by what's happened, because at the heart of it, at the end of it, I go back to where we started, all right? If the BS doesn't get you here, it's going to get you there, because the fundamental failure and lie is this rubbish promise that everything's suddenly got better for somebody who's 30 trying to buy their first unit. Guess what? No. Why? Because the deposit still is $80,000, $100,000, $120,000. The problem is the acquisition and the ability to have enough left over to save for the deposit. If you can't save for it, then you're going to have to get it from somewhere else, bank of mum and dad. Oh, how have they been able to do that? That's right, the investment property. Because nobody's got 10 grand sitting around, let alone 50, let alone 60, let alone 80. That's going to be where I think there's a big deal to go here. All right, quick break. Back with more. Thank you, lads. We'll see you again next week. Colin Flynn, my